Everyone. My name is Breon Ransom, and I serve as the Senior Assistant Director of MBA Admissions at Georgetown McDonough. I hope you all had a great day, and I thank you all for joining us for the final evening of the Flex MBA Online Summit. In case you missed out on joining us for the student experience and the career panel yesterday evening, do not worry. We are sharing recordings of the sessions for you all to catch up on the valuable insights shared by our expert panelists. So stay tuned. Now, our panel for tonight's session includes some of Georgetown McDonough's esteemed faculty members. They will discuss the online courses they teach, their impact, and their experiences as educators. And we would then have a brief Q&A session after the panel discussion, and you may utilize your Q&A feature on your Zoom. Now, without further ado, let's begin with introductions. And then we can go into the order that I have you all on my screen. I would love to for you to share your name, the classes you teach at Georgetown McDonough School of Business, how long you've been at Georgetown, and share a fun fact. So that's just like adding that cherry on top. Just share a fun fact about yourself. And let's start with Sudipta.
Well, very excited to be here. Thank you, Brian. And welcome everyone to this faculty panel. My name is Sudipta Das Mahapatra, and I'm a professor of the practice for business analytics and the senior associate dean of the MBA programs here at Georgetown McDonough. I've been at Georgetown for approximately 4 years now. Actually, I should say a little bit over 4 years now. And time has really, gone by fast, I would say, for me. And I teach, actually to start with, in the first couple of years, I taught a bunch of courses, I would say 7 or 8 courses. But now, given my role as the dean, I am actually teaching 2 courses in the MBA program. One is managerial statistics for the Flex MBA online cohort, as well as a healthcare data and analytics elective course for the MBAs. And a fun fact about me, should I share? Well, I negotiated my job offer and accepted it right after I completed my last interview with the dean during my wrap-up day at Georgetown McDonough. And that's kind of funny because I tell the students, don't ever do this to your family. And, because I had to go back and then answer to my spouse and family that we're all moving to DC from North Carolina. So that's a fun fact. Thank you.
Awesome. Let's hear from you, Anita.
Hi, everyone. I'm Anita Rao. I'm an associate professor here at Georgetown of marketing. This is my second year here. So I've been teaching the marketing core both these years. I've taught both the full-time MBA cohort as well as the Flex online, which I'm doing actually right after the call. After an hour, I'll be teaching the first cohort of the Flex online students, the same class, and then also the Flex MBA students both these years. And in my research, my focus is largely on thinking about firms and their deceptive practices and when they make false claims. So anytime firms do something bad, that's always of interest to me. Fun fact, recently, I guess I've been into these 1,000-piece puzzles and doing them with my 7-year-old son. So that's kind cool. Of what I'm into now for some reason, but that's from me.
No, that's cool. Thank you so much. And Allison, let's hear from you.
Hi, my name is Allison Custer. I've been at Georgetown since 2011. I teach a variety of corporate financial reporting courses in all 3 of our MBA programs, the FTs, the FXs, and the FXOs, as well as occasionally to our executive MBA students. I've been teaching that type of course in a variety of different ways over the years at Georgetown. So I guess I'm the old person on the panel. Been here since 2011. My research is financial reporting and government economic incentives and how those 2 things interact. And a fun fact about me related to Georgetown, I think I had to tally up the number of graduate students I had taught since I came here. And I think I was over 3,000 MBA students since I've come to Georgetown. So that's my Georgetown fun fact. I was very surprised too when I actually tallied. So that's lovely. I love the Georgetown community. Fun fact, I've been skydiving not once, but twice. Had so much fun the first time, I made my dad go with me on the second time.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I enjoy hearing about like, kind of like the outside, like the activities of like professors and things like that, because I know like a lot of your life is dedicated to your teachings and things like that. So it's always enjoyable to hear. So thank you for those introductions and sharing those facts about yourself. Now, getting into those questions, what is the first thing that you would do to get students on the right track, to complete your course? Like I know like even if they're just, been working for a few years and haven't been a student for a while. So like what is one of the first things you do to kind of like get them on the right track? And we can start with Allison.
Oh, start with me. Okay. I try to think about starting with why. And so I teach a variety of financial accounting courses. The textbooks are very dense. There's more material than we have time to go through. And so the objective is not to burn through every chapter in the textbook. It's for me to curate a class about why should we care about this? Where will you see it at your current employer, at potentially your future employer? When you see it, why should you even care about it? What does it actually tell you about what's going on at the company? And how do you use that information to make decisions? And so I think starting with the why of every topic that I try to introduce to the students is really the foundation of how I approach what I'm going to teach and how I'm going to teach it.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Anita, how about you?
So my class involves a lot of case writing, and for most students, this is a first-time experience, so they've never written cases before. I add in a very strict constraint of no more than one page, and it has to be double-spaced with 12-point font. So that really gives you about like 10 lines. And the reason I force students to do that is because I think similar to what Allison said, like, why are we making this case? Usually it's a business case, there's a problem that the company is facing, and you are proposing a solution. So the question is, in marketing is also different in the sense there's no unique formula or there's no right or wrong answer. Usually, sometimes there is a right answer, but usually there is no right or wrong answer, and you have to argue through logical steps, through your reasoning, why this makes sense. And I think that experience is new, and over the course of the class and over 7 cases or so, they learn this. And I think all students, they're doing this in groups, so I think all students like that experience, and I think it's useful in their future. Like, this is a report to management, so I think it's useful for them to see how these are written, learn how this is written, and then use this in their work as well.
Awesome. And how about you, Sudipta?
I think my esteemed colleagues, power women who are here, have already mentioned some of the things I wanted to talk about. So I just say a couple more things. One, setting up expectations on the first day is really huge for me, and I try to do that while I talk through the syllabus on the very first day. And then I really do think that almost every single course at Georgetown would, and especially at McDonough, has a group component to that, or a team component to that. So leaning on each other, other strengths for group projects, really talking to each other about their perspectives on the content that we are teaching is absolutely important. I also, really ask students to, to take advantage of not only their cohort and their team, but also come to the office hours, ask questions, ask for help if you're falling behind. All of that would really kind of ensure that the students are successful when they're taking our courses.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned office hours, because I remember one of the students on the panel yesterday was saying how she utilizes the office hours in tutoring. And I love how Allison and Anita started off like with the why, because that's what's going to drive your passion in this course, to have you complete it and learn what you need to learn to actually be successful in it. So I love that. Thank you. Now, what is a typical day like in your class for an online MBA student? And let's start with Anita.
Yeah, so usually the way I have this structured is, so typically the class has a lecture component where you're learning concepts and tools, and then there is a case discussion component. So during the synchronous portion, when we are all together, we discuss the case in detail. So most of the students have read the case, they've, prepared a memo, but there are still, certain learnings that come from other groups and how they have thought about the problem, or how I have thought about the problem, and bringing that together is a big chunk of the in-class discussion. And then I also spend some time with usually some news articles, and, how do we look at this from the concepts we have learned last week, or in general from the marketing lens, how do we take this business situation and analyze it? That's
Awesome.
usually the structure of the class. Yeah.
Thank you. Sudipta, let's hear from you.
Well, I just say that there's no typical day for my class. So most of the Flex Online courses that are core classes are 50% asynchronous and 50% synchronous, right? The live sessions. And so these live sessions, for me especially, are going to build on the asynchronous material portion. So one day I will do a class discussion based on pre-reading. Another day, the students would be working on a problem with some data in Excel. Yet another day, they could be working on breakout groups and discussing a particular topic. On a fourth day, there could be a guest speaker, and the students are going to write a reflection on that, and we will have a discussion on the reflection. And so again, it really varies depending on what is the content that we are actually teaching, and especially for me. And the idea is to make these live sessions very engaging and sharing different perspectives from the students who are all working professionals in a variety of industries.
Awesome. And Allison, let's hear about that typical day as an online MBA student in your class.
Right. So the synchronous sessions really need to be interactive, right? So the async sessions, you're watching the videos, we've all kind of embedded little questions and problem sets within those videos often. So you're kind of on your own on that. You can do, you can watch your video with a teammate if you want, but it's more passive than certainly being in the classroom and in the classroom virtually. And so we really try to make the time that we're together very interactive. So we want people to be asking questions in the chat and raising their hands. When we go into breakout rooms, we want people to be engaging. So that's really where the community aspect of an MBA program comes into play. And I can't stress it enough that the community is what makes an MBA program really what it is. And so different MBA programs have different cultures and communities. And I really, really appreciate the community at McDonough. It is very embracing. Everyone wants everyone else to succeed. There are not sharp elbows here. It is very helpful in terms of students wanting to help each other, faculty wanting to help students and faculty. And I absolutely love that warmth that we have in our community. You have to talk to people if you want to build that community. And so we want people to interact in the sessions and really get to know, the little boxes on the Zoom screen as well as they can.
Yeah.
And may I just add to what Allison was saying? It's great that you say this, because I was chatting with some of our students that had just returned from their internships, and I asked them about what was different between you all from Georgetown versus other students from other schools that were in the same internship firm, right, and doing their internships. And they said, yes, one of the really great things was that we worked together. We talked to each other about what our problems were, and we were having fun while we were doing that, while other, students from Stanford, Harvard, other schools where, I don't want to name schools here, but, they were really competitive with each other, because at the end of the day, many students want that their internship converts into a final job, right? A job offer. And so there was a lot of competition among other schools. And they were saying that there was such a great community collaborative feeling among Georgetown students. So I really want to second what Allison has been saying. It is really truly a community environment that you would see here, even in the classes and learning.
Yeah, and I could third that as a staff member. Like ever since I've been at Georgetown, it's been like I always tell individuals, and not over exaggerating, but it's still like my first day. I still feel, it's like a fresh feeling. It's probably one of the places where I really can engage with the community and be in that student facing role and really see the work that faculty and staff and students are doing, just to give back, even be successful while they're doing it. So I really appreciate that about Georgetown. Now, what types of group projects do your students accomplish, and how do these projects benefit their education beyond classwork and one-on-one learning? And let's start with Sudipta.
I would say for me in my classes, and I could attest this for other faculty members across the MBA program and other programs as well, that generally these are experiential projects that we work on. It could vary based on the content that you will see across the different courses. In my statistics course, we do not have any group projects, so I don't want to talk about it. It's the first course, and we really need the foundational aspects of statistics. So we have all individual projects. But in my healthcare data analytics course, which I was teaching recently in March, I have to say that I have 2 cases that the students have to analyze. These are all real cases. And final project, which is really interesting because this is where the students work in teams to think about a problem in the healthcare industry where they should be able to use technology for positive healthcare outcomes. Now, some of the really great things about this project is the students have to critically think. They have to do a lot of research about a problem that will require technology, reflect on what they have heard in the classes and from the guest speakers. They have to seek external help, which is great because, you know, many times you have to do that in your current job as well. You know, and justify an ROI for their solution. So really it kind of touches on many aspects of general business functions. Like how do you run a business? I mean, it's absolutely that. And you go into any job, you might have to think about, you know, different aspects of this. And so this is a very interesting project because there are also things like risks and ethical constraints related to population, privacy, and healthcare regulations, you know, all of those aspects that this touches. And so you know, it's really gets them to think and teaches them how to manage their time and to teamwork as well. So some of the power skills that could get them one leg, you know, forward into their careers.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a lot to gain in that amount of time in that class as well. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Anita, let's hear from you about the group projects your students accomplish and, you know, beyond the classwork and one-on-one learning.
Yeah, so in the class, I think 50% of the work is group-based. So the cases students are doing with groups. Again, because they're learning this for the first time, I think it's important and fun to do it with other people so that you're all learning together. They also have 2 presentations, which they're doing as a group. So one presentation is what I call marketing in the news. So they have to pick something that happened in the last 3 years. So maybe a company introduced a new product that was a flop and think about why that might have been a flop through, again, the marketing lens, right? So why didn't customers like this? What did the competition do? So things like that. And that's usually fun because it's something recent. It's a nice learning tool for me too, because I get to learn about all these things that I would not have come across otherwise. And second project they do is they look, and this is, so this is something new that I've introduced. They will suggest a line extension or a new product for an existing company and talk about why that makes sense and why the company should do it, but also point out some potential weaknesses and how we should, you know, be wary of those weaknesses. So that's one thing. And I think that's also good learning for beyond the class, because oftentimes as product managers, or as, you know, if we have a good idea, we tend to fall in love with it and see only the good things about it. So I like to push to say, hey, you know, what if things don't go right? And what do you think are the bad things that can happen to this good idea, right? So usually there's some weaknesses, and I think students gain that objective viewpoint, which I think is helpful beyond the class.
Yeah, and that sounds fun because I think that students will probably even find themselves noticing things outside of the classroom from like that particular project, like marketing errors and different things like that. Why did the thing, you know, why did the item flop or something like that? And just unintentionally kind of noticing that and following news about that. That's awesome. Allison, how about you? Any about the group projects and this that the students accomplish beyond the classwork and one-on-one learning as well?
Sure. So my course in the FXO program is a 6 week course. So it goes pretty quickly. The first 5 weeks, we have weekly assignments where group work is optional. So I definitely encourage in the syllabus, and I mentioned in class that the assignments are designed for you to have enough time to talk about each question with your team. It's going to be covering what we just talked about in that week to give you that touch point of actually practicing the financial reporting, looking at real companies' financial statements together. However, I do understand that people are traveling and people have other responsibilities that are not their FXO courses every week. And so I try to make the group component optional. If you want to work with your group, please do so. You can pick your group. I can give you a group, whatever makes the most sense for you during those 6 weeks. If you have a crazy time, personal situation or work travel, and you really just need to have the flexibility of doing something on your own, that is perfectly acceptable too. So I try to give people some optionality in my 6-week course on the group component aspect.
Awesome. I like that flexibility. I like that.
Mm-hmm. It is in the
Awesome.
name of the program.
Yeah. Now, what is the most important thing that you've learned about how to teach at Georgetown? And Allison, let's start with you. I know you've been at Georgetown since 2011, so let's start with you with one of the important things that you've learned about how to teach at Georgetown. It's
going to be a little bit repetitive, but starting with the why. So I think when you first graduate from a grad program, I'm a financial reporting, so I was an accountant in a former life, and you have all this accounting knowledge that you're so excited about, and you want to talk to people about it. And if you don't stop to explain that, like, why should anyone who's not an accountant care about this? It makes it a little bit hard to get everyone excited about it. And so I actually say, I think on the first day of class, like, I am not under the impression that anyone is here to become an accountant. I totally get it. What I want you to do is be facile in financial information, because no matter what your job is, no matter what your industry or business line or functionality, you will be looking at financial information for decision-making in your job. And so let's get comfortable with that. Let's think about frameworks and how to approach that when you're in your next meeting. And you could be at the government, you could be at a nonprofit, you could be at a for-profit company. Whatever it is, we need to start with making it accessible to you and starting with the why you should even care about this. I don't know if I realized that in 2011 to the same extent that I do now.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it just over time, like just evolving, in your role and things like that. So that's really awesome. And Anita, let's hear from you. What is the most important thing you've learned about how to teach at Georgetown so far?
Yeah, I think what I really enjoyed is using, and this I think is specific to the work experienced students, less so. So I think this crowd here is the exact audience where I think using the experience to add value to the discussion at hand has been very useful. Oftentimes there'll be insights, like someone the other week worked in the hotel industry and was able to bring insights from that experience to a case we were doing on TripAdvisor and how TripAdvisor works in booking hotels. So that was really valuable, and I think it was good insight. And I think having that work experience connecting that to the cases and our discussion in class is something that is nice and adds value. I think that is something that initially was I didn't realize that value exists, and I think students were also not sure whether they can bring that in. But I think that's something which I've I guess broadened my class to allow these kinds of discussions to take place.
That's awesome. And Sudipta, let's hear from you.
Yeah, I think Allison and Anita have covered a lot of the basis of what I was gonna discuss, but I also want to make another point, which is when I had first come in here, during COVID time, that was COVID year 2020, we were just starting to talk about assurance of learning within our classes. And so what that really means is what kind of learning objectives do we have from each of our courses? And I talked to our our vice dean of faculty at that time, who kind of said that Sudipta, it would be great if you could bring in a balance. It could be one or other thing that could be a little bit more or less of business knowledge, global mindset, ethics, and what am I forgetting? Leadership, right? So those 4 aspects into the classroom. And our students should be able to get those skills, right, across our courses, in the MBA program and other programs as well. And so that was a very interesting idea. And as I started looking into building my courses over time, right, I started to look into those areas and what I could include in my content that could fit into those buckets, because it really is is thinking about creating a holistic person, right? A person a student that can actually get this kind of holistic understanding across different courses and problems that they are looking at. So that's how, I mean, that's what I would take, which is, it's certainly very, very different at Georgetown as compared to some of the other schools that I've been at.
Awesome. And Saditra, I'm gonna come back to you with
Yeah.
what do you think that students are surprised to find that they learn in your class, like a surprise to them, like they may have come into your class with a certain expectation, but it kind of like flips that and it's something totally different, like any surprises that they have mentioned to you?
So I'll talk about my my first course that the students go through, which is the STAT course. When the students come in, they feel like, okay, here's one faculty member who's going to just talk to us about, you know, all the math and everything else. And you know, I do think that they may be surprised to discover how the different concepts in statistics and math from seemingly unrelated disciplines can intersect and complement each other within the course material. And so this interdisciplinary approach can provide them with this holistic understanding that I was talking about, you know, of any topic at hand. You know, in our statistics course for the Flex Online program, we have put this course together, all the asynchronous materials as a combination, you know, by using 4 faculty members at Georgetown, and only 2 of them are teaching this course, but the students get to hear multiple perspectives from the 4 faculty. So I think that's what is, I think, a surprising element.
Yeah, they're probably expecting just to hear from you.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I didn't know that. I just learned something. That's cool. Allison, let's hear from you. What do you think students are surprised to find that they learn in your class?
This might sound a little silly, but I think that students are surprised that they enjoy the class. I think my course topic benefits from incredibly low expectations. People presume that, gosh, I had accounting as an undergrad and I really didn't like it, or I had accounting as an undergrad, I already know everything. And so probably a very consistent comment I get when I read my student evaluations, faculty read every single comment, I promise we do, is, I can't believe how much I loved your course. I don't even like accounting. And I think it's because of just trying to make the material come alive. And so it's not these courses that you're taking, even if you have an undergrad degree in business, even if you're working in business right now, they are not your undergrad courses. It is a totally different perspective. People have come to me and said, I've had like 5 or 6 or 7 accounting courses, and yours was like this fresh take. How is that possible? And it's because we're teaching adults, right? We're trying to teach lifelong learners new skills, what's happening. You know, the world is very different from when you were an undergrad. And so we can actually kind of talk about similar things with a very fresh perspective, look at new disclosures. And so I think that is usually, I guess I benefit from subject matter, low expectations.
That's awesome. You know, it's so funny because in February, we did it like a sneak peek mock class, and there was a accounting fundamentals, and I sat in on that, and well, I was a host of it, of course, but it was really amazing because when I was an undergrad, like thinking about me, I'm like a fashion design and marketing major, so like numbers, the most I really like paid attention to, I'm gonna be honest, with like retail math and maybe the college algebra, but it was really tough for me to get through those courses. But when I sat in on that mock class, it was so easy to learn. It was really amazing. I really enjoyed myself, and it was such great feedback from that. So I can really attest to what you just said to us. So thank you for that. Anita, how about you? Yeah.
You can appreciate the courses so much more when you've had your decade of work experience, right? Like it
Yeah.
just like really comes alive. And so that's so fantastic from faculty and student perspective.
That's true. Anita, how about you? Any surprises? What surprises the students, you know, learning in your class?
Yeah, I think when people come into marketing, I think the standard expectation is marketing is about selling, or marketing is about advertising. And that's not at all what marketing is. In fact, I have this quote that I think if you get your marketing strategy right and make your product fit what the consumer needs, the product will sell itself. You don't need to do any effort, right? So that's kind of the starting point. And essentially, you understand the consumer so well And so I put this, I have this picture of the Mad Men character and say that, hey, let's make a cool ad and that's it, we're done. And say that that's not what it is. And then I have something where, a person is looking at the data, kind of probably similar to what Sudipta's course looks like. Like you do like all the data analysis and then use that to figure out what is it that the consumer wants. And once you understand that and know that there's an unmet need in the market, if you can provide something of value, then that's where you should be focusing all your energy on and start from external, not internal. That's the second thing. Most people think internal in the sense that, hey, as a company, we're good at, say, R&D. Let's just figure out the next best product there. But that's not going to necessarily make it as well. So yeah, so I think the surprising thing is, hey, this is not a class about advertising or just selling.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Now, thinking about now, of course, knowing their why, why are you doing this? Why are you, in the program, you're in this class, this is what you need to learn. But like, what is the most important thing for students to know about taking a class with you? Even thinking about like those study hours, the time that they can dedicate, to your course. Let's start with Allison.
So what I do for each of my course, so every time I teach every mod, I survey the top 5 students and I say, can you provide, your professional background? I'm always curious, do you have a background in what we're talking about or not? I would say more than half the time there is no background in what we're talking about, which I actually love, where you're starting from ground zero and getting to that very top of the distribution. And I say, I can give students tips for the course, but it means a lot more when it comes from you. So on my homepage on your Canvas website, I have a tips from former students and I update it every mod and it's in students' own words. How did you approach the course? What really resonated with you study-wise? Did you do, whatever they want. I just ask an open-ended question. They all give, the top 5 or 6 give me their answers and I give it to next year's students. And I find that really helps students hear it from, just that 1 year ahead of you. What really helped you? I can say it, but it means so much more when it comes from your peers who have actually sat through the course.
Awesome. And Anita, let's hear from you.
Yeah, so most important thing I would say, like marketing is, it's an art and a science, right? So it's a combination. It's not fully scientific, it's not fully creativity. So there's like a combination and we're kind of walking that middle ground there. Also, I think there's no net present value formula that I can give you to figure out the answer. So that's, I think, can be challenging, but can also be fun, like pushing students to think about things through, again, there's no right or wrong answer, but backing your thinking, be it for just a discussion about something that came through the news, through reasoned analysis. I think that is probably the most important thing.
Awesome. Just kind of pushing you to like think outside the box and like bring forth new ideas. Thank you for that. It's
right, like two students can come up with totally different answers, but if they are able to back it up with this makes sense because ABC, then both of them are right? I think that's what the marketing course teaches them.
Definitely. And Sudipta, let's hear from you.
Sure. And I just say, Allison, I'm going to do what you are doing in your class. I would love to do that and then share the tips. I would call it tips from previous students, right? Exactly. I love that idea. Yeah. And so what is the most important thing students to know? I would say that be prepared to hear a lot of stories from me in terms of my experience. I've worked with hundreds of capstone projects across a variety of industries, but mostly in the area of analytics, statistics, and data science. And so you can get me talking about, a lot of these type of stories and anecdotes from when we were doing this work with this particular company. This is what actually happened, and here's what we learned from that. And so that, I share that quite a bit from my consulting experience when I was in the consulting world before academia. And, all of us that are here and all the faculty members, I have to say, prioritize student growth, development, and success. And we are committed to providing any kind of supportive and inclusive environment within our classes, outside of our classes, all of that. And particularly so that, you all, the students, would have are empowered to ask questions and challenge themselves. So I think it's true to all the courses across Georgetown, and not only just our courses. And we hold the students accountable. It's a give and take, right? So I think students should be prepared for all of this when they come into the classes.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Now I know that you guys provide like office hours. I wanted to know, are there other opportunities that you provide for outside of office, outside of class for online MBA students? And let's start with you, Anita.
Yeah, so that's a good question. So I was just thinking so most of this would happen through emails, I think, where I just an hour ago, I got an email from a student saying, hey, this was an article that we discussed last class. Here's something else that is interesting along those dimensions. And I think that kind of interaction, it's fun. And then I can share it with the class as well. So that's, I think, something out of class. So I like it when students send me emails of articles or things that they found relevant to the concept that is being taught. I think that's, the main thing I would say out of class that I've had experience with.
Awesome. I like that, because some students may feel like, if they don't schedule office hour time, like they wouldn't want to bother you outside of that, but just knowing that you're open to receive that information outside of that and then sharing it with their peers, I think is really awesome. Sudipta, let's hear from you. Are there any other opportunities outside of the class for online MBA students?
I mean, definitely office hours, for us, and the TAs, tutoring, connecting with guest speakers, all of that, we could do that. But I think one of the ways in which the faculty and are really helpful at Georgetown is, even questions that are related to careers and skills and what kind of resources can we go after. So a lot of the personal growth questions the faculty is very open to discussing with students. If you are a career switcher and are looking for resources, connections, and those kind of things, the faculty are really, really helpful with those type of stuff as well. So I would say tons of opportunities for the students to actually meet with the faculty and connect them to other kinds of alumni or other faculty members. Really, it's up to the students if they want to take those kind of opportunities into account.
Awesome. Allison, let's hear from you.
My full-time students actually seem to take more advantage of this, but kind of a core principle of my course is we're just trying to understand corporate economic performance. And so I want, corporate economic performance changes every quarter and every year. So while we're looking at data that was, last year or the last quarter, I update my course every year to reflect more recent data, so you know what's going on at a company. And what I'm trying to get the students in the habit of doing is knowing where to get this data. So if you're going for interview prep and you want to stand out from other candidates, I show them where you can get all of this financial information about material events and economic activity. And the idea is to get people comfortable with financial statements and SEC filings, so that 5 years from now, if they're interested in something, they know exactly where to go to get this current information. So I generally engage a little bit more on that with my full-time students, just because they're looking for jobs generally when I'm teaching them, whereas many FX and FXO students are currently working full-time. But even with career switchers, I'm interviewing at this firm, what might you think about looking at? And we talk about companies. They'll bring me sets of financial statements and disclosures, and we talk through some of those things. So it's very real world applicable, the discussions that we're having. That my rule with them in class is that if I can't show it to you in the real world, we just don't talk about it, because the point is applicability.
Yep, that makes sense. And thank you for that. Now, in the audience, you guys can use the Q&A feature to ask questions. I don't see any questions there yet, so I'm definitely going to keep the conversation going. But if you have some, please drop them in the Q&A. Next question for you all. What do you do to make yourself better at your role, like a better professor, in your teachings, in your role at Georgetown, just overall, you're more than just an educator. You are, a huge part of the community. So what do you do to make yourself better? And let's start with Sudipta.
I would say a few things here. One is we take student feedback very seriously. right, within the programs and within the courses. So students have a chance after the classes are over to provide their feedback, and we incorporate that into our courses as we, because really the idea here is to incrementally improve over time. I read quite a bit because my area is, changing so fast. Technology is driving everything today, and the things that are true today may not be true like, a week from now. So I try to go to conferences, read a lot and collaborate with other professors and the industry, really, because that's the only way that we can make ourselves better in terms of what the type of content that we are able to bring into the classroom, right? So and a couple other things that I try to bring the technology into the classroom as well. So we do a project with ChatGPT where we are actually, I generate the problem using ChatGPT, and then I give the responses and results to the students, and I ask them to beat it. And it's actually pretty interesting because that tells the students about how technology can be utilized and what are the pitfalls of using it. So again, there are those type of things, and playing around and piloting things within the classroom that I think, makes us better as we, move into the second, third, fourth, fifth years of our classroom classes.
Awesome. Sounds good. Anita, how about you? How do you make yourself better, at your role?
Yeah, so I think two things. So one is definitely similar to what Sudipta said, keep updating yourself and what's happening in the news. And I do, in my research, a lot of work on misinformation. So like whatever the FTC is doing or the FDA is doing, it's always on my radar. So if there's a warning letter being sent to a company or an influencer, then that's something that I pay close attention to. And I try to bring that a little bit to my students as well. Last class, in fact, I shared this Washington Post article about so WHO recently had this aspartame, classified aspartame as possibly carcinogenic, and the entire food and beverage industry, got up in arms and said, oh my God, this is going to tank our sales. And so they paid a lot of influencers to say that that's not true. You can safely consume aspartame, which is in Coke Zero and a bunch of other diet sodas. And those were all ads. And so that's something that, I'm passionate about. I, talk about it in class, and I try to bring a little bit of research that other faculty in marketing are doing just to, still, I think some of the questions in marketing are still unanswered. So I think bringing that into classes is nice for the students as well as for me.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then Allison, what makes you better, at your role? And then we have a couple questions in the Q&A, and we'll hop into that after we hear from Allison.
Yeah, so one of the funnest things about teaching on Zoom is that you need to be listening and also responding in the chat. So I just answered a question actually in the chat as we were having a conversation. More of the, what does it look like to have discussions? But there is another question that I did not participate in. So I wasn't involved in the on-campus week format. So I'm happy to defer my airtime to James's question. If we can turn it over to you, and maybe we can get to him.
Yep. So James asks, also hoping to learn more about the on-campus week format, talking about the residency. How does that, how that differs from the online portions of FXO? Sudipta, you want to take that?
Yes, I can take that. And Brian, you can kind of chime in where you feel necessary. So the on-campus week format is, the on-campus, residency, I have to say, is really an interesting and the most I would say exciting part of the program. At least, this is what we hear from the students. This is the feedback from our first class that came in. So that is a combination of, course content that you're going to get, but more so about, learning about each other and trying to connect with your peers that are going to be working with you and learning with you over 2-3 years. And so really we provide a lot of opportunity for students to connect together and connect with faculty members, connect with staff, your advisors that will be here, talk to the career folks. And so we really kind of make it interesting. In the first residency, when you actually come in, it's all about, learn the culture of Georgetown and learn about your peers, right? So it's all about Georgetown and your peers and the courses and really assimilating and taking everything in here. The second residency, which is in your second year, you would actually learn more about Washington, D.C. and how your course content and the faculty and others interact with the businesses here. So you'd be able to go on site and visit some businesses. You would be able to see how government does businesses, how industry does it, as you come to Washington, D.C. And then the third residency, which is actually your global business experience, is all about global, right? So you're really expanding and understanding about how business is done in a global environment. What are some of the opportunities and risks and constraints you have to come up, you're going to be coming across as you think about, being in this global world. And so there is, it's very intentional what we do during our on-campus weeks. That you are here, but really it's our priority is to make sure that you learn about each other, you connect with your cohort, connect with the faculty members, are able to see Georgetown and Hariri and kind of feel a part of this whole community.
Awesome. Yes. And just to add to that, like the residency, especially with the inaugural class, being the advisor for the Flex MBA online was really a treat for me, because when I first came to Georgetown, the FXO program was brand new as well. We were actually, just opened up applications for that program. So it's like myself and the online MBA programs kind of growing together at Georgetown. So I really love that. But in just meeting that first class in person at their residency, like, hey, I've spoken with you like throughout the application process, guided you throughout this, and now I'm getting to see you in person. You're actually meeting your cohort that you're a part of in person. And just starting to build those relationships and networking is really awesome. And I hear great feedback all the time from that class. So, and then even and I hope you were at the event last night, because you could kind of hear from those students as well about their experience, and also see the recording that we'll actually put up on YouTube as well. But thank you. That was an awesome question. But we are coming to the end of our event. Any last words from any one of you for a prospective student who's applying for the program, or who have applied for the program and is a admitted student thinking about, coming to Georgetown? Any last words?
I mean, I could do my last word, but I would say, like, here's a question by Peter that we should definitely answer,
Yeah, of course.
it's in the Q&A. So the question is, given the online program at Georgetown is relatively new, what are some of the biggest lessons professors have learned over the past year or so about this new dynamic? So I have to tell you that although the Georgetown Flex MBA online program is a new MBA online program, we at Georgetown and at McDonough are pretty good at delivering online programs. We have done this over several years, okay? Either in the MSF program or the Master of Science in Business Analytics program. So we've been doing this for a while. And so I would think that, given our experience there, we've really become, I would say, sophisticated in terms of the technologies that we actually utilize for our asynchronous materials and sessions. I think we've learned about how to engage students in the best possible way, and we learn as we go through each of these classes and each of our cohorts that come into the program. So we are not new to the online environment, and I have to say, we do learn every day about something new, but we are pretty good at it.
Awesome.
So now we can add our final words. Ask Allison to probably start.
No, we have. I mean, we meet regularly as a group. We do like semester debriefs. I teach the second accounting course. So I'm very closely talking to the person who teaches the first accounting course, making sure the sequence is going through and actually is sequential and builds upon each other. So there's a lot of faculty interaction. How did this go for you? What did you do differently that you do from your in-person courses? And so there's a lot of discussion, and faculty really want to improve. We're like the most enthusiastic students you'll ever meet. So like we get really excited about improving. So with respect to the online program, it is a wonderful community here at McDonough, whether you're in person or in the FXO program. People really care about each other and helping each other out. And it's not just like read a textbook and take a test, right? That is not the point of the MBA program. It is to learn from each other. Some of the best interactions you're going to have are with each other, with the faculty there or not. Hearing about someone's work experience or what they're thinking about, how they approached a problem or this real world application. And so it's the whole community is so wonderful. online and in person. And I really hope that you come to McDonough and experience it with us for more than our 45 minutes tonight.
Yeah. Awesome. I did see. You're
Can I
welcome,
mention one
Peter.
last thing?
Of course.
I would say that one of the things that I've learned about about online programs is balancing your time management, because most of you are going to be working full time and then taking classes in the evening and then meeting up with your teams. And so prioritizing and, first thing is time management and learning that is going to, come to you, but the first month generally is kind of spent there. So thinking about it beforehand, how do you do that? Like letting your supervisor know that you're going to be in an online program, and so you have to shut yourself off at 5 o'clock. So those type of things are very, very important for you to do. The second thing is prioritizing self-care and balance, right,
Yes.
with your family life as well. So the program is demanding, both mentally and emotionally, especially because you're working as well, and you may have a family that you have to work with. So it's essential to carve out time for rest, relaxation, personal interest. And so we really do advocate for that within the program as well. So so healthy work-life balance is what I would say in the long run is going to make and affect those students successful. And we want students to prioritize that, and we support that within the program. So I hope that you will all consider to come to McDonough because, of all these wonderful things.
I second that. Thank you. Awesome. Well, that wraps up our evening, the final panel for the Flux MBA Online Summit. I appreciate the panelists, Professor Sudeepta Dasmopatra, also Senior Associate Dean of MBA Programs, Anita Rao, also Allison Custer, Associate Professors. Thank you so much for joining us and giving your insights as an educator at Georgetown McDonough. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Breon Ransom again. I hope we can get connected after this and I can answer any of the questions that you have. I just want to say it aloud. It's very easy. My email, br593@georgetown.edu. Again, br593@georgetown.edu. Please email me if you have any questions, and I'm happy to get you connected further with the community. Hope to see you again at another virtual event. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.